Welcome to the Communities of Character podcast, the show that shares rich conversation about character development across different vocations and callings. Today's guest is Wayne Richardson from Hoover City Schools. Dr. Richardson has been the principal of Deer Valley Elementary since its doors opened in 2001. He's always valued the importance of developing character in young people and really started making that the focus and brand of Deer Valley for the last 6 years. In 2018, Deer Valley Elementary was named a National School of Character by Character.org. And for the past 2 years, his school has participated in the Hope Leadership Academy, and they continue to seek opportunities to bring character education to the forefront of all they do. You will really enjoy our conversation on this episode. Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's episodes of the Communities of Character podcast, a place where you can learn about all things character. I'm your host, Jennifer Hogan, and today's guest is an elementary principal in Hoover, Alabama, Dr. Wayne Richardson. Welcome, Dr. Richardson.
Thank you, Jennifer. I really enjoy the podcast, and I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We have you on to talk about Principle 3 of the 11 Principles Framework from Character.org, because your school, Deer Valley Elementary, was named a National School of Character in 2018. And that is such an awesome, incredible honor for the staff and the students and you and y'all's commitment to creating a culture of character in the school. And what did it mean to you when you got the news that your school had been named a National School of Character?
It was a great honor. Absolutely. We had our superintendent come into the gym so she could hear it as well. But it really was the process more than the honor. Had we not gotten it, it wouldn't have mattered because we grew so much through that process. I would encourage anyone that's interested in having a school of character or even a culture of character at all to go through that process because there's so much growth that can take place.
That's awesome. And would you share with our listeners how you got involved in character education?
Sure. I guess growing up and being around bullies and seeing it firsthand, I think I've always known what kind of school I wanted to. Let me put this a different way. What type of kids? I did not want kids to treat each other badly. So the idea of having a school that did not have bullying was very appealing to me. And for several years, I really focused on kids not being bad. And then actually through a lot of processes, one of which we went to see a little school in Tuscaloosa named Maxwell Elementary. Through that process and going through the Leader in Me process, I noticed it's not so much about having kids not do bad, but actually maybe making a way for kids to do good and to take responsibility for themselves and their own learning and how they treat other people and how they nurture relationships. And I will give a shout out to Maxwell. They did a great job, particularly in the area of student leadership, student responsibility, and we learned so much from them. And then about that time, a little bit later, we went to the Ryan Clark Academy and sent most of our staff there and just returned with just really with some new ideas of how we could take our school to the next level as far as creating more inclusivity and things of that nature.
That's awesome. And just stresses the importance of really making those site visits and connecting and finding out what other schools are doing and learning from them. So, good on you and your staff for making that effort and going there and seeing it.
Well, the nice thing about it is the teachers loved it as much. I mean, it is definitely a shot in the arm for the school you're visiting, but there's not a teacher in the world that does not want to see what's going on in other schools. And it's the easiest PD that you can ever have. But if it's directed and you know what you're going to look for, it can be an amazing transforming experience.
Great point. Well, today we're focusing on Principle 3 of the 11 Principles Framework, which is about developing character through a comprehensive and intentional approach. Would you describe how you approach or your school approaches character development?
Yeah, I would say the first thing that we have to, and I do believe you have to have in place a comprehensive culture of character, a climate of respect and understanding between the adults in the building. Todd Whitaker is one of my favorite speakers, and he always says, as leaders, our worst day allows others to act like that on their best day. The idea that we represent how we want each the other adults in the building to treat one another, we have to take that so seriously. And when we do fail, which we all do at some point, we need to make amends immediately. We need to recognize that everybody in our school is a person of worth, and we have to value them as individuals, as people, even more than teachers. They have to know we care about them and their families and their circumstances. And when we do that, we kind of set the groundwork for creating sort of a climate of respect and understanding. And I think you have to have that in place, because to create a sense of character development, and kids need to first look at you as role models. And I do think when the adults in the building are treating each other in a way that's supportive and respectful, I think it trickles down to the kids. Um, and I mentioned earlier we went to Maxwell. One of the things that we brought away from Maxwell was the idea of using data notebooks and student-led
Mhm.
conferences. And we've done a lot of things in our school, but this is probably the one practice that had more buy-in than any practice we've ever had. There was a little pushback at first, but it was very quick. For that, teachers saw students taking responsibility for their own learning, students being able to speak intelligently about their own learning, setting their own goals, was something that was so integral to the whole idea of a community of character. Because, as I said, I look at character as students taking responsibility for their own work, for their own lives, and also how they treat others. So that's a huge part of that, is giving them the opportunity to take responsibility. And then through after we went to the Ryan Clark Academy, we came back and we introduced the house system. And through our house system, we really focused even more on those character traits. We developed our core values, identified our core values, I should say. And of course, our houses are all named after our core values. And our fourth and fifth grade students were have had house meetings. And I say had because after COVID hit, we had to keep
Mhm.
the cohorts separated, but they had house
Mhm.
meetings every week. And through these house meetings, they would work with the younger students, teaching them about certain character lessons, leading them in character cheers, having them assist in service learning projects, but at the same time, just giving us a forum for our students to talk about character and how they should act, and how they want other people to treat them. So we definitely gave our older kids I guess, the mantle to pass on to the younger kids, because we discovered that they are going to listen to those older kids a lot more than they will listen to us.
Mhm.
They're looking at us, but when those older kids are talking about it, it becomes cool. And the idea of making it cool to be caring is kind of the gold standard when it comes to character, in my opinion.
That's great. That is great. Would you share an example or two of how your teachers integrate character education into the academic content and instruction?
Sure. A lot of it's just real informal. A lot of it you can see in their read alouds, in their social studies. I was actually in a class today where a teacher was talking about Ruby Bridges, and she was using it to commend one of the other kids that was in the class, because this other kid actually um, was honoring of a friend and did the right thing, even though some other people may not have wanted her to. But just identifying those characters and those character traits is huge. We do have some um, lesson plans for each of our core values that the teachers use on occasion, but that's a little bit more formal and a little less spontaneous. But
Mhm.
one thing that we've implemented this year, which has been amazing, is the idea of morning meetings. Every class
Okay.
does a morning meeting of some sort. And one of the morning meetings that I went to not long ago was the idea of Give Me Four. I think we got this from the Hope Academy a while back. But the idea is that every child in the class would have an opportunity to share some good news, give an affirmation to a classmate, state something that they're thankful for, or tell a joke. And a lot of people do hang out too, so they can be the one that tells the joke. But I do think that they really it starts the day right, and I think it brings them into a family feel. And I do think that that's been amazingly important to our school in general. Um, a lot of times through those morning meetings, we'll have students identify things going on. And one of the things that I had mentioned to you earlier was the idea of we had during the morning meetings one little girl who had a former teacher who had cancer, and she was very
Mhm.
concerned about it. And through that morning meeting, she started talking about what they could do as a class to support her. And they decided that they were going to have a fashion show, and they were going to ask the teachers and some of the students to help. They um, um, charged admission for the fashion show. At the end of the day, teachers, students were who and oh, by the way, and then we had some local uh, dress stores to give some of the things that we were going to put through the
Oh,
fashion show.
wow.
And but she earned about $400 for the Cancer Research Institute, and it was one of those things that was just kind of a magical day because everyone knew we were doing something good, and it was all started with this little child. So that was kind of amazing. So
That's wonderful, and also it speaks of the climate in the classroom where she felt like she could take that idea and run with it, and to really bring it to fruition. And it's not just an idea, but it actually becomes the action. That is really, really cool. In schools, it seems like there's never enough time. We're balancing so much and so much on our plates. How do you, as the school leader, make time for teachers to plan and design lessons for character education?
you know, it's a lot harder now with COVID, but in the
Yeah.
past we have created an extended planning schedule where we would take their PE and their special and put it against their lunchtime, and so basically they had a 2 hour block where there was only 20 minutes that was unaccounted for, and we would get parents to come in and be mystery readers and that sort of thing, and it gave them opportunities to plan. Sometimes it was math, sometimes it was reading, but many times it was more affective, and it was more about things they could do, whether it was service learning projects. We did at one point do a unit on project based learning, and they focused on character. Community service projects, and a lot of that was handled in that same way.
Very cool. So when you have new teachers that come in, what is being done to induct those new teachers so that they understand the culture that's been created where character education is a priority in the school?
Well, one thing that we have done, first of all, is about looking for the right people, and we have our faculty has gone through what it is we value to the point that we have come up with questions that we would ask
Wow.
during an interview, and so we kind of rate them on that. We're very vocal about that we are a school of character, which honestly um, is a huge plus. It can seem braggadocious, but the fact of the matter is we recognize that we fail at it most days, but it's such a great goal to shoot for. And we're very honest
Mhm.
about that. We're also honest about saying we're not looking for someone to fit into the school, but rather someone that's going to make us better. And
Mm.
so setting that up and and then if they see us as seeing them as a person of character, it can't help but promote that. Another thing we do at our school is what we call gel sessions, which stands for giving, encouragement, and laughing. We do that once a month, and a different person just shares out something either that's motivational or encouraging, and so that is a part of what um, they get to know is part of what makes Deer Valley Deer Valley.
How about that? And so at these sessions, is this the entire staff or is this just your new staff?
It's just volunteers. I mean, basically, the last gel session we had about 40 of the teachers come, but it's just voluntary. But it's something that's taken off, and I'm always the backup speaker, but but I have only had to present like twice because there's always someone that says, "Can I present at the next gel session?" Because and it's anything about well, a lot of times it is just something this very thought provoking, something that someone's read or seen. Sometimes it's very personal, something that someone on the staff did on behalf of them or someone they knew. Sometimes it's about their past. I had one teacher just come up and give a story about a little girl that was struggling. Of course, the whole time we thought she was talking about a child in her class, and it turns out she was talking about herself and where
Oh,
where
wow.
she is now. And so it's just about opening up and being honest with each other. And then, after that, of course, every new teacher also has a mentor, and they have the Pride program, which it started in Hoover, but we made it our own because Hoover's kind of discontinued it. But it's all about giving them a resource to go to, someone to lean on, because we all need that, especially our first few years.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. So, what advice would you give to school leaders who are trying to move beyond just reacting to teachable moments and trying to create that comprehensive and intentional plan for character education?
Yeah, I guess the main thing is to model it, just to keep modeling
Mm,
it, to model that you also to highlight activities on social media that demonstrate a culture of good character. Um, to write honest praise. One of the things, and one of the things that I've learned over the years that is probably the most important part of my job is to privately write praise notes to teachers that are specific, that are about what I'm seeing in their classroom, to visit classroom meetings in the morning, and choose to be a part of a different classroom every day, and just to listen to the kids, to support the kids, to affirm the kids, and the teachers.
that's all great modeling on your behalf. And so it kind of leads into my next question for you. I'm curious to know if you knew then what you know now about building a culture of character, what would you go back and tell your younger self as a school leader?
Well, I guess just that, to take time to notice and affirm your teachers every chance you get, to learn about them and their families, acknowledge that while we may have good test scores, uh, what we want to see those scores are our students taking responsibility for their own learning, for us to give them the wings to do that, and to give them the direction to do that. And just constantly remind people that it's all about building up character in students and themselves, that we have one opportunity to make a difference in these kids' lives. Kim
Mm,
Bearden from the Ryan Clark Academy said something that probably was one of the most life-changing things I'd heard. And she just made the point, as teachers, we have such an opportunity that there is no other um, career where you can make a difference in the world like we can, because every single time we touch a
yeah.
child's life, we touch the life of everyone that child's going to touch, and it goes
Yes.
thousands deep. And the idea of that, and the realization that that's not an overstatement, that's true, that we really are making a difference in our world by changing people's lives. No one else has that opportunity. So just reminding teachers the honor we have, and taking time to celebrate them, celebrate their work, celebrate what they're doing. I think that's so important.
That's powerful. We've worked in the same school district for 12 years, and
Yeah.
I've learned things today about Deer Valley that I didn't know. And I know that our listeners have enjoyed learning from you today. I'll be sure to include what we talked about in our show notes. And as we wrap up today's conversation, do you have a book or a podcast recommendation to share with our listeners that you have found to be impactful on your character education journey?
Well, certainly this podcast. Just throw that out there. Um, you know,
Okay.
I've really got a lot out of probably one of the things that had so much relevance to me was the book Switch by Chip and
Hmm.
Dan Heath.
Hmm.
It was a book about making change. It's not specific about character, but it actually intertwines all through this. So that's definitely one I would recommend to any administrator, any leader. Leaders of Their Own Learning by Ron Berger, I thought was an amazing book, as far as the idea of students taking responsibilities and being their best selves. Um, and then basically any book by Todd Whitaker. I
Yeah.
think Todd Whitaker is an amazing speaker. And as far as the character education itself, Priceless by Drayton Neighbors is a great introduction to the idea of why character education is so important, and some ways to put that into place. So those would be the ones I would state first.
Great. Those are all great recommendations, and they will be, I'll link them in the show notes.
Okay.
But our listeners may want to reach out to you for more information about what we've discussed today. What are the best ways for our listeners to connect with you?
Probably just email Wayne at hopeinstitute.org, or you can get me on Facebook. It's just Wayne Richardson, and in Birmingham. So yeah, either one of those ways, I'll be glad to reach out to anyone that reaches out to me.
Great, great. And thank you so much for being here today. I've always known you to be a positive and knowledgeable person and leader. And I just thank you for the intentional work you're doing in building communities of character in your school. And to our listeners, I hope you got some good takeaways from today's discussion. Be sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any upcoming episodes. Thanks again, everyone. Take care.